And for a breaking news update, Albertville police and representatives from the Mueller Company are giving an update on that shooting that left 2 people dead and 2 hurt. Let's listen in.
Something small town Albertville we hear about in other places, but this morning early it struck home. I have a prepared statement. I'll be reading that, and then I'll offer Agent Will Strunk with FBI an opportunity if he'd like to say anything. This morning about 2:30, a call was received to the Albertville Police Department of a shooting that occurred at the Mueller Company. Officers from the Albertville Police Department, also officers from the Boaz Police Department, responded to the scene. Upon the officers' arrival, 4 victims were located. The apparent shooter had fled the scene in a maroon Jeep Cherokee. Information was broadcast to the surrounding agencies concerning the incident. As the investigation unfolded, it was determined that the shooter, Andreas Dion Horton, 34 years old, of County Road 25 in DeKalb County, who is also an employee of the Mueller Company, presented a handgun and began to fire an unknown amount of rounds at fellow employees. During the gunfire, Michael Lee Dobbins of Gaither Road in Boaz and also David Lee Horton of William Street in Boaz were fatally wounded during the incident. Injured during the gunfire was Casey Sampson of Irvin Lane in Albertville and also Isaac Bird of Columbus Street in Albertville. Both Sampson and Bird were transported to Marshall Medical Center South for their injuries and later, as my understanding, transferred to Erlanger Hospital in Chattanooga. Officers immediately began a search for Horton, and through the investigation discovered that Horton was still traveling in a maroon Jeep Grand Cherokee and was possibly in the downtown area of Guntersville. Shortly before 6 a.m., a Guntersville police officer spotted a vehicle matching that description and immediately called for other officers to assist. Officers got there, they discovered Horton was dead with an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head, and also multiple weapons were recovered from inside the vehicle. At this time, officers are still at the shooting scene at the Mueller Company processing for any additional evidence. Currently, officers are also still working toward any motive as to what may have sparked or caused the shooting. Hopefully, we'll learn something more about that in the coming days as the investigation unfolds and the detectives get to talk to, possible witnesses and initial responding officers to the scene. Guntersville Police, the Marshall County District Attorney's Office, and along with a detective from the Albertville Police Department, handled the scene there in Guntersville. Obviously, I'd like to extend our thoughts and prayers to the Mueller Company in the coming days. They've been a pillar and a great community partner in Marshall County for many years. I would also like to extend thanks for assistance during the response and also the investigation to many local law enforcement agencies. Just a quick list of those: Boaz Police, Guntersville Police, Douglas Police, the Arab Police Department, Marshall County Sheriff's Department, Sheriff Phil Sims, Marshall County District Attorney's Office, Marshall County Drug Task Force, the Marshall County Coroner's Office, the Etowah County Sheriff's Department, the Attala Police Department, the Sardis Police Department, the DeKalb County Sheriff's Department, Aaliyah and Secretary Hal Taylor, the North Alabama Criminal Organized Crime Task Force, and the Huntsville RCFL, which is an arm of the FBI. We had several EMS agencies responding as well. Albertville Fire and Rescue, Boaz Fire and Rescue, Marshall Health Systems Ambulance Service all responded to the scene this morning. I also have a prepared statement which I've handed you from the Mueller Company. We've been reached out to here at Albertville by many people. My understanding, the mayor has had phone calls from Washington, D.C., from the governor's office, expressing their condolences for everything that's happened so far this morning. Again, it's a sad day. It's something we only read about here, but it's here. Now I'll read the prepared statement from the Mueller Company. Mueller Water Products is shocked and deeply saddened by the horrific tragedy that occurred early this morning at our Albertville, Alabama facility. Our hearts are with the victims and their loved ones, the Albertville community, and the entire Mueller family during this extremely difficult time. Our entire focus is on the health and well-being of our colleagues, and we are committed to providing any and all support to them and their families. We continue to work closely with law enforcement, in whom we share our deepest gratitude for their support. We will provide updates as we learn more, and the contact for this is on the page that I handed everybody. At this time, if anybody has any questions, I'll try to clarify what I've got on my prepared statement. Yes, ma'am.
Can you say where in the plant? Did it happen in the plant, in the parking lot?
Part of, pretty much every bit of it was inside the plant, confined inside the walls. Does expand over a little bit of an area, which has presented some of the problem for us this morning, but it's all inside the plant.
What kind of problem did that present this morning?
I'm sorry?
What kind of problem?
Just the vastness of the scene. We had victims in 2 or 3 different locations, just a large area.
I understand the call came in at 2:30. What time did police show up?
I don't have that, but I'm sure it was just minutes later.
Can you say anything about the relationship between the shooter and the other victims?
They do both have the Horton last name, but right now, to my knowledge, there's no relation, no ties other than co-workers.
Was this in the middle of a shift, or was this during like a shift change?
I think it's in the middle of a shift, my understanding.
Was the suspect working on shift at the time?
Yes, he was.
Are guns allowed in this facility, do we know?
I do not have firsthand knowledge, but to my best guess, I would say probably not.
Can you say the condition of the injured people right now?
I don't have a recent update. Last contact I had was airlifted to Erlanger.
Can you say anything about the nature of the multiple weapons recovered from the vehicle?
I don't have any firsthand knowledge. All I do know is handguns.
Were those the weapons you used in the shooting?
I don't know right now. And that's something that'll probably come out during the investigation.
So obviously this is not something that happens in Albertville very often. Talk to me about what your team is doing to investigate this and how quickly you can get to a motive in this case, because obviously everybody wants to know the big question, why did this happen? So what are you guys doing to speed that process up?
And so do we. And that's where, our team of guys, our detectives, they've handled this, in my opinion, flawlessly this morning. In the coming days, obviously, that's where we're going to rely on help from folks like Will Strunk with the FBI, to assist where they can, chasing down anything we can. Obviously, the 2 injured folks in Erlanger, it may be a couple of 3 days before we can talk to them in an interview type situation, get what they know. Obviously, their health and well-being is our primary concern, and getting them stabilized at least. Beyond that, it'll be family members, just police work and what our investigators can come up with.
Any word that there was tension or problems with the shooter and any employees there? Have you been able to find that answer yet?
To my knowledge, no. Completely unprovoked at this point would be my statement. But something may change.
Do you have any idea how long he worked at the facility?
I heard around 10 years. I don't know that to be true.
What is the security situation at Mueller around 2:30 in the morning?
The entire facility is fenced and gated. They do have a guard shack with entry-exit way, and it was manned by a private security company. But you have to keep in mind this guy was an employee. He's supposed to be there.
How many people were in the building at the time, and what was the process of evacuating them?
I didn't have an exact head count. The number of folks I saw when I got there, I'm going to say probably in excess of 100. Actually, when I got there, they were already evacuated the building and had them, pretty well isolated in a separate area. So Mueller, I think, done what they needed to do. The supervising staff there took care of what they had to take care of.
So what about 5 o'clock our newsroom got a call from the Mueller facility, and it was a worker inside saying that there's certain parts that have to be manned at all time, and he said he was still in there.
That's correct. And that's something you'll probably need to take up with Mueller, but I do know the furnace where they actually melt the stuff to cast the fire hydrants, that could be pretty volatile. So he was taken out, then we escorted him back in to take care of all that.
Okay, so there were multiple people that had to stay in during that time?
I don't know how many.
What was the procedure of letting the family know of the victims that they were injured? How did that?
That's something we had to get with HR, with Mueller. Had to obviously track them down, so that took a little bit of time, and that's part of the reason for the delay, and I apologize for that.
Where exactly was the gunman found? We heard maybe a cemetery.
I'm sorry?
Where exactly was the gunman found after he?
Carlisle Avenue in Gunnersville, which I understand is adjacent to the city cemetery there in Gunnersville. At this time, I don't know, is there any speculation or reason why he went to that particular location? Maybe again, that's something we can come up with in the next few days, is get to talk to family and learn more about what happened.
Any idea how long the plant will be closed for an investigation?
I was told this morning probably a couple of days. But beyond that, I don't. At this time, I'd offer Will, you want a chance to say anything?
I don't have anything to say. We're just here in assistant role only. Anything the chief needs, we're going to make sure that it gets took care of. So that's it.
Sorry, I had a couple more questions, if that's okay. What do you know about the shooter right now?
Very little. We had some dealings with him in the past, but nothing recent. It's been several years ago, and it was nothing of a malicious or traffic tickets and such.
Have you searched his residence at all?
Have we what?
Searched his residence?
To my knowledge, no. Not yet, anyway.
Okay. Isn't that something that usually happens pretty quickly? Or
We'd have to get a search warrant. So, I've been separate from our investigation guys. That may be something they're working on right now, and it's probably very likely that that's in the works.
And do we know or believe that if there could be any other victims?
To my knowledge, no.
Do you know of any past violent incidents that have happened at Mueller?
At this plant, no.
Do you know how long the shooting took place? Around how much time?
I'm going to say probably seconds.
I know this is not in the press release, but do you know the ages of the victims who passed?
I only had ages of part of them. I'll get back to you. You can bear with me.
Thank you. This may not be a question that you necessarily can ask, but he got in with a gun. Is there no type of, do the employees go through a metal detector? It seems pretty easy that he got on the property with a weapon. Is there any kind of check there at the company for weapons? Is there a weapon policy that you know of there?
To my knowledge, no. I don't know. I'm not familiar with Mueller's policies and protocols. Most employers, some will let you have firearms, some won't. I'm not familiar with their policy protocol, so I can't speak to that.
Chief, can you talk about, this has been happening across the country almost daily. Talk about, something like this happening here in Albertville and how you and your deputies are feeling right now.
It's tough. No bones about it. Loss of life anytime is terrible. Whether it's at the hands of a gunman, natural causes, car accident, name it. It's we're just fortunate we live in a community that people care. We got a lot of good folks here. Just something we don't have to deal with, luckily, every day.
Have you spoken to any witnesses? Have they shared any information?
We're still early in that part and hoping something will come out. People are being talked to. So
So what does the investigation look like right now? I know they're processing the scene right now. What are the next steps?
That's something the detectives are going to have to sit down and decide. We'll have our guys, DA guys, federal guys, state guys, a multitude of agencies to help. That's something, we've got a lot of preliminary information. May have to step back and take a breath and see what the next step is. My guess, they're probably going to start talking to folks pretty quick.
Does this make it more difficult because the suspect, the shooter, is dead? There is no one to hold responsible. There is no one put through a trial process. It's just almost like it's over and there's no justice for the victims. How difficult is that from a law enforcement perspective?
It is. In a way, anytime anything like this happens, that's kind of our deal. We put the bad guy in jail. It's just part of the game, part of life.
I know you're with the FBI, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
How are the two agencies working together? What is your role in this as far as trying to help Albertville Police Department come up with motive and whatever other parts there are to this?
We're acting in a supporting role. We're just acting in a supporting role. So if they need phones downloaded, they need manpower to interview people, scenes to process, we have people that we can bring in to do that.
And that's just normal protocol to
Yes.
be notified like that?
Yes, ma'am.
I've also got a prepared statement from Mayor Honey's office. He's the mayor of Albertville. Ms. Robin Goer, mayor's assistant, I think you've handed those out. It's, again, the mayor's sentiments, our hearts are breaking today after the senseless tragedy that has taken place at Mueller Company in Albertville. Mueller has been an integral part of the lifeblood and workforce of the city for just shy of 50 years. Thanks to them, Albertville is not only the heart of Sand Mountain, but is also known as the fire hydrant capital of the world. They're dedicated, important partners of this community, and we hurt with them today. On behalf of myself, our administration, and staff of the City of Albertville, I send our heartfelt condolences to the families of the victims, well wishes to those injured, and our thoughts and prayers to the entire Mueller team, both here in Albertville, across the United States, and abroad. So, that reaches a long way. Tough times. We'll get through it. We're a strong community. Thank you.
All right, saying it's a sad day, something we only read about, but it's here. Albertville Police Chief Jamie Smith, you just saw him. He led off that news conference with details about that overnight shooting inside the Mueller Company in Albertville. 2 people were killed, 2 others injured. The chief identified the gunman as Andreas Dion Horton, who took his own life later on in nearby Gunnersville. Chief Smith said Horton was an employee at the Mueller Company. He identified the victims of the shooting as Michael Lee Dobbins and David Lee Horton. No relation, according to the chief, to the shooter. Those 2 were killed. Now, he also says Casey Sampson and Isaac Bird were injured in that shooting and transported to nearby hospitals. The chief also read from a statement from the Mueller Company expressing its condolences to the families of the victims and offered its support to law enforcement. As for the motive of this shooting, the chief says it's very early. Local law enforcement will continue to work with the FBI in the days to come to try to find out some answers to this. But the chief also says he understands at this point that this shooting was completely unprovoked. We have reporters covering all angles of this tragic story out of Albertville. We'll have the latest online and today on WAY 31 News at 4.